Is this recording or not? What the hell? It's very easy to say that we're just on a 4 game winning streak and we're doing so well, but if you look at that game was against Luton and we actually struggled to dominate the game. Quite disappointing. Let's be real. It's just from Man United's levels that we should not be struggling against a team that's getting memed. People saying that they're going to get 0 points to get pretty much dominated by them. It's kind of embarrassing. Before we continue, like, what do you think of like the new lighting? I mean, it makes me look like really brown and stuff, but um, I kind of need it because like I don't think you can see me. I promise you, I'm not this black. Anyways, let's talk about the game. So we obviously had a good 10-15 minute start. I think that's just because of Luton's inexperience in the Premier League, and they're not able to get into the game at the very early stages. So we were just able to exploit loads of gaps, and they made a couple of mistakes. They weren't marking properly on the corner. Obviously, the long ball forward, that defender should have dealt with it a lot better. But after that 10-15 minute sort of like scrappiness faded, Luton really came into the game, and after they scored, they completely had almost had basically dominated the whole game. They had the majority of the chances, the majority of the shots. And you have to like nail that down to the fact that the players and the personnel, of other than a couple who I'm going to select out later, weren't like wasn't a bad choice. They weren't playing badly, but it's just the tactical setup wasn't correct. This is what we probably should have played as, like a 4-2-3-1. But what we actually pretty much really saw was Mainu almost pushing forward and basically sitting in next to Bruno Fernandes, and we'd almost have like two like number 8s or number 10s pressing forward. I know why. And we all know why. It's because Ten Hag loves this counter press. If you watch the game, all we're doing is getting the ball from the defenders or the goalkeeper or whoever, and just booting out the pitch every single time. And that's because Ten Hag's preferred way of playing is get the ball as high as you can and just counter press. We don't really have any sort of possession build up football. There's no real setup in the team to try and play through lines and keep the ball and dictate a game like Man City do, for example. It's just boot it up, counter press, win back the ball in their half, and score goals. And let's be honest, at times it has worked, but it can lead to a very, very frustrating game. It's quite boring at times, quite annoying, and it can lead to just us getting completely dominated. Because when you don't have the players who can win back the ball in the final third consistently, this whole system breaks down. And the reason we conceded so many chances was because a lot of the front four, front five kept getting stuck in front of the ball. So let's say we were in some situation maybe that looks like this, and this player here tackled Bruno Fernandes, and Fernandes lost the ball to that player. You can now see that there's like one, two, three, four, five, six, arguably 7 players in Luton's. Like, so what I'm trying to say, there's so many more Luton players that can attack us and we can defend them. So it left the likes of Casemiro, Maguire, and the rest of the back four completely exposed at times. That's why you saw Casemiro making so many tackles and almost getting sent off, and he had to get substituted in order to stop the risk of him getting sent off. And I don't blame Mainu or Fernandez or the players for this sort of thing. It looks like a tactical thing. We've seen this whole season, especially if you remember right back to the start of the year when we had Mason Mount and Bruno in the midfield, and Wolves are just running through our midfield, and Casemiro was just getting completely ripped apart and exposed because he just has no one sitting next to him. Last season we had Ericsson who wouldn't be this high up the pitch. Ericsson would sit next to him, and Ericsson wouldn't really go into a tackle. He'd sort of jockey the player, allowing Casemiro to do all the intercepting, and Ericsson would just try and back off the play and slow down the counter attack. But nowadays we just have too many players going too far up the pitch, whether that's Mount next to Fernandez or McTominay or even recently Mainu. In these last 2 games, Mainu's been kind of pushing too far forward for my liking, and I think that it's causing our opposition to get a lot of chances by just simply counter-attacking us and getting numbers against us. Now, when the Casemiro Mainu partnership first came into play, this was never the thing because Mainu was so much more deep and he was dictating the play from quite deep. But I think now Ten Hag really just want to put an emphasis on getting his second midfielder very high up, which I'm not really a fan of, and I don't think it's going to work, especially in the Premier League. And the reason it's just so risky is because we're not really trying to play through the lines possession football. All we're doing is getting the ball to Onana or the centre backs and just hoofing it up the pitch and hoping one of these players can just counter press and win the ball. But if they can't, or if they lose a ball, which we did several times in this game, it's so easy for us to get countered on, and it's so easy for a team to just string a couple passes together and maybe create a goal. Now, after that game, a lot of people are going to try and blame Maguire or Casemiro for maybe seemingly getting too exposed, but it's not really their fault. It's more so the players around them who are letting Luton attack us so much, and we have committed too many numbers forward too many times. If you remember against Wolves, in the very death, we committed everyone forward in that corner. And we conceded a goal, and Wolves equalised before Man Utd did some magical thing and got a late winner. And that kind of links me to my next point. We've got the two goals very early on, and after that, again we're just too complacent. I think other players were trying to took their foot off the gas and were like, let's just take random shots. Let's just play it easy instead of trying to get a third goal, trying to get multiple goals, and create as many chances and be as ruthless as possible. And we saw that against Newport. We got two goals, I think, very early. We just were so complacent, we were so laid back, took the foot off the gas, and then Newport scored against us and came back into the game. Team needs to have a proper sit down and realise, okay, if we're 2-0 up, especially when we're 2-0 up, keep going, keep putting the pressure on. Whatever we're doing, just stick to it. Don't ease off, don't relax, don't defend, don't reserve your energy. Just keep doing what you're doing until it no longer works. Because we allowed Luton to come back into the game, and after they scored, they literally just took complete control. And I've got to give props to a few players like Varane and Evans, who defended immaculately in the second half. Now, I don't want to get too critical about particular players, especially when we're on a winning run, but I'm starting to get a little bit frustrated with the likes of Rashford and Fernandes in particular. I think Rashford had a bit of an off day. I'm not going to go too hard on him today. But I think Hoyland's been banging in so many goals, and Garnacho's definitely been trying. Rashford's kind of been the quiet one in the front three. He's kind of getting the accolades. You know, the people are saying this front three is working amazingly, but I think Rashford's kind of been the one that's slacking the most out of the other guys. I think it hasn't really been portrayed in the media as such a big thing, mainly because he's just a very likable guy in the media and he's English and people don't really want to criticize him. But Rashford just seems to be ghosting in a couple games. Fernandes, on the other hand, I just think I don't know what he's really done in the last few months. Actually, he works hard. He's always fit. He's a good example. But in terms of on the ball today, there were a couple of times where you just want him to be clinical and play the correct pass. He had a one-on-one. You just want him just to be clinical and not overhit passes. There were two very, very big chances that if he just hit a perfectly weighted pass, something that almost every number 10 in the league can hit, especially in the top six. Madison, Odegaard, De Bruyne, all these players can make those sort of passes, but Fernandez just sometimes is just a bit wasteful. He's always had that part of his game to him where he's always trying to create chances and can be wasteful. And that also means that when there's clear cut opportunities and there's clear cut chances, he can also mess them up. But in the past, he made up for that because he just created so much and he got so many goals and so many assists. Now he hasn't really been amongst the goals. He hasn't really been in amongst the assists. I think most of his goals this season have been penalties. Again, I think it's too early to jump on this bandwagon, but it's something to keep an eye out for. And I think maybe if this persists for another few games, I honestly probably look at getting Ericsson into that number 10 position, maybe getting a bit of composure and someone who can be a bit more clinical and technical in their passing. There's not really much else I can say, so let's just see how well each individual player did. Onana, probably a 6, wasn't completely useless. Dallo, a 6 as well, had an average game, did his job. Varane, you've got to give him credit, at 6.5. He's a world class player, helped us a lot today. Maguire, probably a 5. Look, was a bit exposed. Luke Shaw, 6. It's sad to see him injured again. Casemiro, probably a 5 as well. I mean, you got that yellow card and was, again, like Maguire, was just so exposed in that game. Mainu, I'll probably give him a 7, yeah, because he was very composed in that game. But I think tactically his positioning was off, which led to us being exposed a lot in that game. Fernandez and Rashford, I've put them in the same bracket, both a 5. Fernandez was completely wasteful today, and Rashford didn't really do anything really. Garnacho, probably 5.5. At least he tried. And Hoyland, a 7. 2 goals and barely no service. I'll probably give Lindelof a 6. You know, he's not really a left back and he did a decent job. McTominay, a 5. Didn't notice him at all. Evans, a 6.5. Did very well when he came on actually. And Amrabat, a 6. didn't really have enough time, and Primo actually did his job okay. I think the 4 win streak is pretty good, but you know, to be completely dominated against by Luton, that's just disrespectful on our level. Like Man United is never really about that. We had a good first 15 minutes, but after that, how are we getting dominated by Luton? It's actually stupid. But yeah, as I said, hopefully we just keep the winning momentum going. But I think we do need to make a little tiny tweak of just pulling Manu back and clamping on that midfield and not exerting too many players too far forward all the time. The best thing we can hope for is just some confidence in the fan base. We've got 4 wins. Let's go get a fifth next time we're out. And yeah, let's hopefully get top four. In the last outro, I punched my camera and it kind of went black. So I'm not going to do that again. So just do all the YouTube, like subscribing, liking, all that. Yeah, and yeah, bye.